And thanks that you are recording that if other people would like to. So, and possible that sometime I will be also sketchy because of the length of the topic and the limitation of the time. So sorry about this. So let's begin right away, since we have already spent some time in this logistics. So you must have heard about the Buddha and his Dhamma, a monumental work of Ambedkar. You know, this work took shape after a long study on the fundamentals of the Buddhist thoughts, telling the life of Siddhartha. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I got interrupted, so that's why. So I was talking about the Buddha and his Dhamma, the well-known work of Ambedkar. So telling the life of Siddhartha in a simple and communicative language, Ambedkar unfolds his Dhamma in an eventful way. There is an interesting section in that book called Siddhartha Gautam, how a Bodhisattva became the Buddha. And in that section, we learn in length about Siddhartha's difference with Sangh on the issue of river water. His understanding and stand on water ultimately became life-changing, leading his departure from Sangh, kingdom, and home in search of a new light. So here goes the story. Siddhartha was closely attached and active in the Sangh for 8 years with his exemplary performance. An event about River Rohini and its water came before the Sangh. River Rohini, demarcating the kingdoms of the Sakyas and the Kolyas, was the lifeline to both the kingdoms for water and irrigation. Both kingdoms had disputes, quarrels regularly as to who should take the water of the river Rohini first and how much. So now a major clash happened between the servants of Sakyas and Kolyas, and several injured. Both kingdoms were gearing up for war to settle the ownership and distribution of water once for all. So the Senapati of the Sakyas called a meeting of the Sangh to decide about declaring war on the Kolyas to claim the river and give them a tough lesson. Siddhartha Gautam opposed the call and said, war doesn't solve any question. Waging war will not serve our purpose. It will show the seeds of another war. He proposed for careful investigation by 2 persons each from Sakyas and Kolyas, and 4 together electing a 5th person to settle the dispute, water dispute. Senapati opposed Siddhartha vehemently and asked for a vote in the Sangh that actually overwhelmingly voted for war. Next day, Senapati called for another meeting of Sangh to finalize war plans, where he proposed to arm every Sakya between the age of 20 to 50 for the war against Kolyas. Siddhartha stood up and again opposed the war moves. Furious Senapati asked Siddhartha to obey the majority decision of the Sangh and threatened him to expose to public shame, social boycott against him and the family, or confiscate the family lands. So opposed to war over the river water, and also to save his family from distress, Siddhartha proposed to become a parivrajak and leave the country, a kind of exile. So to make a long story short, it is given in very detail. The war was somehow avoided, and a heavy relief came on the minority who were opposing the war. Thereafter, Ambedkar narrates the parting words and situation of Siddhartha again in length. His parents were in grief and weeping, pleaded Siddhartha to reconsider his decision and postpone the Parivraja, proposing the whole family getting into exile along with him. However, Siddhartha remained firm in his resolve. And he said, it is because I promised to take Parivraja that the Sangh decided to postpone the commencement of hostility against the Koliyas. It is very much possible that after I take Parivraja, the Sangh may be persuaded to withdraw their declaration of war. So Siddhartha thus left his home forever. And you know then the life-changing journey of Siddhartha. So as we see Ambedkar, Buddhas, in his first boots of social conscience, takes a stand during a conflict over water rights. He is passionately against war over river waters and calls for a thorough investigation about the distribution of waters between two kingdoms. He sacrifices his home, his family, to stop the devastating water conflict. But have you ever found this above passage of Ambedkar, that also from a very well-known book, or other similar passages in any narrative of Indian environmentalism? No. And even when they do appear, they are read not in any way as an expression of our environmental tradition, what Karthikeya was mentioning just now. They are read not at all in our environmental discourse, but simply as discourse on caste or social justice or Dalit rights. Whereas I would say, and many others like Ambika is here in this talk, she has also working greatly in these areas. Some people would say that Ambedkar's detailed narration on village, land, agriculture, water, community, industry, technology, science can prepare the ground for an environmental perspective. An environmental perspective where environment must not, could not be disentangled from the ugliness of caste injustice, where the development of rural landscape should not be, must not be, could not be disconnected from the social relations and structures of power in which it is very much closely connected. And where ecology had to... I request you people to please mute your mic. I request the audience, please mute your mic. Your voice is coming in between. Thank you. So I was talking about that how an environmental perspective could be built based on Ambedkar detailed narrative on many aspects of environmental issues. So Ambedkar ideas and intervention on environment can be brought together to form a collage of his agrarian and environmental philosophy. And that is my topic today. Continue slightly the water issue, because as I said, Ambedkar has written extensively on water, agriculture, village, land. So we can take one issue and it can consume the entire seminar. So let's take actually for a few minutes more, water. As I began with the water thing. So Ambedkar deals with water in diverse ways in his personal and political life. The Hinduism encompasses different beliefs on water. Environmentalists also too often view the issue of water as entirely separate of any kind of caste politics or caste discourse. You know how traditional water systems are uncritically celebrated in our environmental narratives. However, Ambedkar, time and again, confronted with those beliefs and practices where water was one of the most important means for striving to preserve purity and avoid pollution. And symbolically, in the eyes of upper caste, you know, water encompasses physical cleanliness and spiritual well-being. Of course, an object of worship, holy sanctity, and religious rituals, which washes away impurities and pollutants, and which is meant for physically and mentally, within quote, clean people. So for Ambedkar, if you get into his personal and political journey, for Ambedkar, water had a definite caste, as it turned polluted as soon as Dalit touched it. If you read Dhananjay Kheer biography on Ambedkar, there he gives many accounts. I will just read out one small account and a few lines. Dhananjay Kheer actually narrates about Ambedkar in his youthful days. I quote, from the evening till midnight, the boys, means Ambedkar and his brothers, traveled with their mouths parched with thirst, but nowhere could they get drinking water on the way. Every time people either pointed to the filthy water or asked them to go away. This was the first rude and shattering shock to the budding mind of Bhim Ambedkar. That day he knew that he belonged to a family that was untouchable, dragged to drink and eat filthy things. So that is his narrative and Ambedkar's journey going through the water. You must be knowing about Mahar Satyagraha and the burning of Manusmriti. They are the signposts of Dalits and Ambedkar's struggle with water. Mahar Satyagraha, what was Mahar Satyagraha? At the core of it was the assertion of untouchables' rights to take water from the public watering places, which was one of the defining moments in Ambedkar political thoughts and actions. The Mahar struggle also symbolized the interconnection between untouchables, environmental traditions, agrarian ethos, access, and all these issues together. The centrality of water for untouchables and the abuse and misuse of public water bodies became a converging point for many divergent traditions of Dalit that actually placed many facets of agrarianism and how should we structure agrarianism devoid of caste. So that is another aspect of Ambedkar on the issue of water. At the same time, if you get into that journey of Ambedkar through water, in dealing with the making of water policy, Ambedkar had to deal with many other complex issues of post-war reconstruction and economic development, policy issues and jurisdictions of the irrigation department, regional and central, action plan, questions of ownership, areas of work, roles and responsibility of state and center over interstate water, and many other projects. Here he was more for a regional rather than a local approach in tapping the river waters. If you read S.K. Thorat, you will find the details. So amidst this background, the efforts of Ambedkar towards initiating whether Damodar River Valley Project or Son River Valley Project or Hirakund Project were quite new and challenging to his times. Opening up a entirely relatively unexplored field of planning and scientific knowledge and social ecology with multiple connections between society, environment, economy, technology, and state. So That is another Ambedkar environmental thought one could decipher. Ambedkar, if you get into his writing, repeatedly also was emphasizing the importance of the conservation of water. So this is water. Now, quickly coming to not only water, because I just want to give you the collage. If you take land and agriculture, they were crucial in Ambedkar's thought for the transformation of Indian agrarianism. Since his early political activities till the very end, he was a very, very prominent proponent of a set of ideas and action to change systems of land holding, land revenue, land distribution, land records, forest land, from the perspective of landless farmers and untouchables. Actually, Ambedkar's focus on land ownership, I would say, developed and strengthened a major strand of Indian agrarian tradition. Could be connected with the tradition coming out from Indian left, but also going beyond them, because he was also dealing with the issue of caste and untouchability. He had made various efforts in the assembly and outside through meetings, resolutions, legislation to abolish the very oppressive Watandar Mahar system in Maharashtra. Similarly, he began to challenge the Khoti system, a land tenure system in the then Bombay presidency. So Ambedkar developed complex political and economic arguments on issues of, as I said, all these land holding, land acquisition, which taken together can be read as his future vision for a rural society with an ecological sensibility. For instance, I can go on and on regarding the problems of scattered and small farms. Ambedkar had serious concern about these subdivision, fragmentation of agricultural holding, which according to him